Hurricane Ian quickly intensifying and taking aim at Florida. The Gulf Coast bracing for a direct hit.
This hospital in Tampa taking no chances. Workers seen building a flood wall around the hospital to protect against rising waters. The National Hurricane Center predicting between 5 to 10 feet of storm surge in that area.
Residents in the Florida Keys are also boarding up and stocking up on sandbags. Right now, all of Florida is under a state of emergency.
And even though South Florida is out of the cone, we could still see significant flooding in some areas.
And we have live team coverage on the storm's path and the preparations in place. We begin with our chief certified meteorologist, Betty Davis, and hurricane specialist and storm surge expert, Michael Lowry.
Hi, everyone. Hurricane Ian is getting stronger. Winds of 105 miles per hour as of the 11 p.m. advisory. Pressure 962 millibars. It's moving toward the north-northwest at 13 miles per hour. And Michael, it's getting closer to that western tip of Cuba.
It is very close. We're forecasting, or the Hurricane Center is forecasting, up to 15 feet of storm surge with this push of wind here in western Cuba. Winds of 105 miles per hour. Category 3 winds, Betty, start at 111 miles per hour, so a few ticks up, and this one we have ourselves a major hurricane. Not that it's not already major, but this one's going to get into the Gulf and strengthen, we think, even further.
Almost noticing an eye-type feature on there.
Yes, you can see that right here. The warm spot, as we call it, the yellow within the red, that is the developing eye of this very, very powerful hurricane.
And tomorrow heads over into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. Forecast still to become a Category 4 hurricane as it passes west of the lower Keys and then makes its way up toward the west coast of Florida. And look at how tightly packed those icons are.
Yeah, that's one of the big things we want to point out here is that, yes, it is expected to weaken just a little bit as it gets to the coast, but it's going to be moving very slowly as it does so. That means it's going to have a lot of time to not only push water from the coast inland, Betty, but also bring a tremendous amount of rainfall possible here to the entire Florida peninsula. We're even seeing some of those rain bands here in South Florida tonight.
We are. Those winds circulating around the hurricane, pushing that ocean water toward the shore. It's going to be problematic.
It is. And, even down in the Keys, I should mention, they will see some storm surge from this, but it's primarily a West Coast Florida, which we'll talk about here in just a minute.
That's right. Some of the impacts here, the heavy rainfall. We are under a flood watch, by the way, through Thursday. So just keep that in mind. Plenty of rainfall to be had.
Yeah, and then also the gusty winds. I can't forget about that. I mean, we're going to have some of that down here. We're not expecting the sustained winds, mainly in the squalls that come through, but we could see some gusty winds up to 40 miles per hour. And Betty, as well, the severe threat. We often get these isolated cells that move through. The tornado threat is going to be here with this one as well.
All right, we'll be tracking all of that and, of course, keeping a close watch on what's happening with the storm surge.
Yeah, and so the big story with this one's going to be the next few days is what the water is going to do. These are tremendously big storm surge numbers, Betty. I mean, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge is what's being forecast into Tampa Bay. I have never seen a forecast like this in terms of the magnitude of the storm surge in this part of the coastline. So many people that live here. And it's not only Tampa Bay. I mean, we focus on Tampa Bay, but to the north up here into the sweeping arm of the Big Bend, up to Cedar Key, and then down to Fort Myers, maybe as high as 4 to 8 feet for some of these areas. So a wide stretch of coastline here along the western peninsula that are going to be impacted by this one in the coming days.
And also the Keys. We cannot forget the Keys. Let's really focus and close in on this area too, where we're expecting some storm surge 2 to 4 feet. That's the forecast.
It is the forecast. We take a bigger, closer look at this one. You can see that, yes, it is less in magnitude than some of the areas to the north, but nevertheless, they're going to have some flooding issues in some of the low-lying areas. I want to talk for a minute about the steering with this one. That has been kind of the focus the last several days. What's going on here is we have two areas of high pressure sort of flanking Ian on either side. In the middle, we have a dip in the jet stream. That dip in the jet stream is pulling this to the north. As it does so, you kind of have competing steering issues here. You have high pressure that's kind of going to the south here. You have the jet stream that's wanting to go to the north, and you have Ian in between, and that kind of keeps it a slow-moving system. And the concern here, again, is when you have a slow-moving storm, it's the water. And it's typically the water that is the most deadly hazard of a hurricane. About 90% of deaths historically in hurricanes are from the water, from the rainfall, from the storm surge. So that is kind of the biggest concern here. Look at some of these big numbers that we are expecting here close to the coast, up to 20 inches of rain. Holy cow. Down here in South Florida, though, even up to 10 inches of rain in some of those bands. They're going to be really starting in earnest, Betty, tomorrow. The rain bands on the outer edges of Ian, but also continuing on into Wednesday as well.
And we've already got some good downpours, soaking rains happening out there tonight. These are leading to some flood advisories in parts of South Florida, including from Fort Lauderdale down toward the Miami area, where we continue to get soaked. Even the lower Keys dealing with the downpours and the gusty storms too. We'll take a closer look at the Doppler radar coming up here in a few minutes, and we will be here to get you through the next couple days.